Hi, everybody. We are here. It's 10:30, and Hannah's come in a little late because she went and got some extra photos for us. I want to introduce you to Jay Brower. I always call you CEO, Chief Enthusiasm Orchestrator, but that's not really your title. I'm going to have you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself so that people get better acquainted with you. Those of you who don't already know you, he's very, very well known up here in my neck of the woods. But for those of you who don't know him, Jay, I'll turn it over to you, and you can let us know.
Well, thank you for the privilege of being here, Chris. Chris and I are good friends and have met and dialogued for a number of years, and so I appreciate being a guest on your show. I am Jay Brower. I was raised in Teton Valley, Idaho, raised with a sense of adventure and never have really lost that. And in a few minutes, I'll just kind of tell you the story about some of the reasons I do what I do in terms of adventure. I'm married, happily married, 42 years now,
Woo-hoo!
and have 5 children. There's my wife, and I also have 4 grandchildren, and they are probably the brightest spot of my life. I work in the school district. I've worked in the Bethel School District now for 37 years in a number of roles. Most recently, I work as the Community Connections Director for the Bethel School District. And my job is to kind of help connect the outside world with the inside world of education and the inside world with the outside world. So like yesterday, we were doing a giveaway in a community, and one of the seniors at Challenger High School was there helping me and to, to I guess spread good cheer. And so that's another passion of mine, and that's for another show, Chris.
Okay, I have
But
a
yeah,
few images of you doing some of that stuff, so we'll
yeah,
get to
yeah,
those again as we come through here.
great. Um, and at some point, then I would love to start to tell my story a little bit.
So, do you want me to start with photos, or do you want to just go ahead and do that?
Well, let me tell you my story for a second, and then let's go into the photos if it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was raised to be pretty active. Um, you know, in Teton Valley, Idaho, there's an awful lot to do. There's the Grand Teton, you know, Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park. There's unlimited opportunities for mountains and hikes and climbs. There's also canyons, there are rivers and streams, and was raised on a sizable farm down in southeastern Idaho, and with a fly rod in my hand, used to love to fly fish and do all the things outdoors. And then at some point, I started to grow up and moved away um, and moved into education, social work, and then I married the love of my life and started our family. And then at that point, then the the adventures were more with the family, not so much those individual adventures that you go high in the mountains and such. And so for many years, I really tried to be a really good father and family man and husband and such, and coaching the baseball team, just doing everything I could to run kids around, to give them opportunities to explore who they are and what they like to do and such. So
I
then
bet
when I
I
got,
bet you're just amazing. I mean, just the amount of time I have known you, I just that my gosh, to have somebody like that as a mentor and a cheerleader and an advisor and everything that you do for those kids, I'm just fine. What a blessing Bethel School District has in you.
well, you're very, very kind. Yeah, my grandkids, we have a lot of fun together, and my kids as well, and all kids. And you're right, all people. I love being with people. Well, when I turned 51, I was again involved with my son. We I would go to scout camp with him each year up at Hobus out here on the Olympic Peninsula, and not too far out of Belfair. And so I just had a routine physical. That was part of the requirements to be a scout leader. And when I went in when I was 51 years old, then I have a great doctor, James Foss, now retired. And he told me, he said, when I went back in for the results of, the samples and things, he said, sit down. And I said, oh, I'm
Oh.
kind of in a hurry. Yeah. I said, I'm kind of in a hurry. I'm in a hurry, so I'm good. And he goes, sit down. And I said, wait, is there something wrong? And he goes, sit down. So he
Oh.
had my full attention. And so I sat down and he said, I don't really like your numbers. And he and I were real close. So we could say anything to each other. And he just said, I don't like your numbers. He said, I want to know, your cholesterol's kind of high, your blood pressure's kind of high. You're in your 50s now, and when's the last time you've done something, for cardio, cardiovascular, done something for your heart? And I said, well, I've been coaching kids and telling them to take a lap around the field, and I haven't been taking any laps around the field or anything like that. And he said, well, I need you to, because otherwise you'll be on medication here in a while. But if you'll, he said, if you'll move 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, then I don't think you'll ever have, any medications and things. And so choice is yours. And so he had my full attention. And so I when I was a boy on the farm, I was kind of competitive with myself to see, like, how fast could I move a line of irrigation pipe, sprinkler pipe, we call them, or how fast can I load a load of hay,
Mm-hmm.
or those sorts of things. Like, how long would it take me to get from this side of the field to the other side of the field? And so I thought that might be fun to do something with running, which I hadn't done since high school, honestly. And now I've got on my chest, of course, I've got the Sound and Arrows here. It's a
Yes.
great 12. Yeah, it's a great 12K event, and I want to give a plug for Danette Poole Felt and her team for the great job she does. I'd invite anyone to be a part. You can walk it, run it, or there's short distance and up to 12K. But anyway, and so my brother-in-law, Jaron Walker, he had a free entry to the Over the Narrows, which is about a 10-mile run, and I hadn't been running at all. And as I was running along, and I was running on Over the Narrows bridge, and the breeze was hitting you, and it was almost emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked up, and there were people a lot older than me, both men and women, that were just passing me right and left. And then there was a gentleman from Joint Base Lewis McChord that had Army boots on and a full pack, and he went running past me. And I remember, I think I said something like, Jay, you're pathetic. So, you've been blessed with a really good body. My dad, one time in junior high, won the county track meet for his school, and he was the only one who entered from his school. So he won pretty much every event. And so I knew I'd been blessed with a really good body and had taken care of my body pretty well. And so when we got done with the race, and I did it very slow, then my brother-in-law said, how was it? And I said, well, it was pretty humiliating, but at the same time, when I was on the Narrows Bridge, it was really exhilarating to be up there. And he goes, well, do you want to do something else? I said, sure. He goes, well, what do you want to do next? And I said, oh, I don't know, maybe a marathon. And so that's a 26.2 miles. And
Yes.
he said, okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but sure. So he and I trained and did the Green River Marathon in 2011. And it was really hard. When I crossed the finish line, I didn't know I had actually crossed the finish line. I just, and then so he said, hey, we did it, and I kind of went down on the pavement right there. And I was kind of a little delirious, and my wife is kind of like, Jay, you kind of need to move. People need to get by you, and they're going to run on you, and they're going to run over you and stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, that's the least of my worries, so, but what it did is, after I came to my senses, it was just this great sense of accomplishment. And so So in my 50s, then a lot of what I tried to do was just run marathons or run distance races. I still had kids at home, and so that's something I could do. And so I'm proud to say in the next 10 years, I ran 20 marathons.
Wow.
And so I just finished one last year, I guess it was, maybe the year before, last year maybe. And so then when I got to be 60 years old, then I I have some great friends, and I'm going to give a shout out to Jake Haynes, Dan Tolson. There are others, and they are in their 40s, and I was now 60 years old. I'm now 63 as we speak,
Uh-huh.
and and I said, you know, it's a shame I didn't get up and down, you know, these mountains around here. We've got some great volcanoes, probably the best, you know, ever in the whole lower 48,
Absolutely.
outside of Canada and Alaska. And Jake goes, that's no excuse, you know. He said, get going. Let's start doing some stuff and get you up and down those mountains. And so he has many more adventures than I do. Jake Haynes does, but anyway, he started encouraging me. He and Dan and others, and so just started doing a lot of hiking, a lot of you know, lower climbs and things, and then putting in for the lottery to go up Mount Rainier and some other places. And so then over the next let's see, so in 2021, I started with Mount Baker. I'm sorry, I started with Mount St. Helens on on May 20th, 2021. And then over the next 9 weeks, went up and down Baker, Adams, besides St. Helens, and then Rainier. So we did 4 pretty major climbs. And so, and then the next spring did Mount Hood, and then finally got up and down the mountain that I looked at for my whole life growing up, the Grand Teton, somewhat technical.
Uh-huh.
All in who takes you up there. And I had a really great person, and my boyhood friend, Brad Nelson, he and I went together with a great mentor, Brent, and got us up and down that as well. And
Wow.
then have another friend, KB James, who invited me to climb Mount Whitney, which is the tallest mountain outside of the mountains in Alaska,
Yes.
for 14,505. So really, my story is though a lot less about myself and any achievements I might have had. Really, what it is it's a story about how we probably need to dream our whole lives, even when you get toward the retirement age, and we probably need to believe that we can probably do more than what we've done, and that can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be climbing a big mountain or anything. It can be, you know, walking down the block. It can be achievements that are outside of fitness as well. It's just the idea that I, I, I feel like in America, sometimes we have that mindset where we start calling people old, or I'm too old for this, or I'm too tired for that, and, and so I think my story is one more of, the mind is very powerful. And I think the body is very powerful, and that together, what I think happens, and this is my own thought, that if your mind says to your body, okay, we're in our 60s, it's time to, you know, we're done, slow down, just, you
Uh-huh.
know, watch TV and you know, call it good. And so the body goes, okay, we're done. And then the body reacts accordingly. But if your mind says to the body, oh, we got a lot of things to do here. We got mountains to climb and rivers to cross, and we've got a lot to do here. Then I think the body goes, oh, okay, I guess we're not done. I guess we better get going. And then between the mind and the body, you just, you know, try to stretch yourself and responsibly. I want to stress that it's responsibly, and certainly I don't do things that that my medical doctor would not allow, you know, say was okay. But
Right.
I feel like it's that thing where, if at the end of the podcast today, if people don't leave with anything else, it's that continue no matter what age you are, set, you know, dream and set some goals, and then work to achieve those goals, whatever they may be, and do that until the last day on earth. So there's my message.
Absolutely. Mark Twain said one time, as he was approaching, his last year, 75, he said, "It's amazing because my mind is still 12."
Yeah.
And I try to do something and I can't quite do that all. But if you will maintain that eager, can-do 12-year-old mind and tell your body about it, there's a lot of things you can do that you can still do. And you're exactly right. We tend to say, okay, well, now I can kind of rest on my laurels. That's when the health starts going south, because you're not demanding much of your body. And
I think you're right.
I just started about 4 years ago, I think it was. I started playing pickleball, and I
Wow.
started, reshaping my body just by my activities, and diet, of course, but activities and stuff. And it's made a world of difference, even in my I've always been kind of an optimist, but I was starting to rest on my laurels, and now my optimism is back, because once you get those endorphins going, you remember, I am 14 inside. There's a lot of things I can still do that I have not yet done. And
that is a great message. Great message.
The whole idea is, remember the teenager that is still in you, because if they still have dreams, pursue them. It doesn't matter what it is, music, walking, whatever. So let's go into some photos here, and you can explain them, and you may have longer stories for some of them. So just tell me when to move on, once I show you. Oh, and I wanted to let you know, Hannah, the reason I looked down for a moment is Hannah sent me a message on the phone saying she cannot get back on, but she's listening. Okay. So she won't be with us today unless she can manage to get back on here. So here we go.
So this is the high steel bridge out here on the Olympic Peninsula. It's the highest steel built bridge, I believe, in the lower 48. And don't quote me, but I believe it's 500-ish feet high. And the Skokomish River comes down through it. If you look to my left on the photo, you'll also see just the beginnings of a waterfall that's coming down there. But the water is just beautiful, clear blue, and it is just a very, very high steel bridge. If you look it up, just look up high steel bridge. It's pretty amazing. You can drive across it. You can also park and you can walk across it. Be careful, you got little kids, because the rail is not extremely high on it. Or if you're afraid of heights, I probably wouldn't go out there. But it really is quite a sight to see how the engineering feat to create this. So there's the story there.
There's I took a cruise to Alaska in 2004, and we went up the fjords to Sawyer, North and South Sawyer Glacier, and they had these huge icebergs coming down that the cruise ships had to avoid. But they were tidy bowl blue. They were just absolutely tidy bowl blue. And that's kind of like what it looks like to me. This image to me. Just astonishing beauty. Absolutely amazing beauty.
Thank you.
Okay, and here's the next one.
So probably the most dangerous climb I've done, perhaps, would be Mount Hood. So people think of Mount Rainier as, it's a pretty scary place, and Grand Teton certainly is more technical. You got to use some gear to get up and down there. Mount Hood, I think, sometimes is underrated. It is, and it probably depends on when you go to, but the day that we went, this was an early morning when we were up high enough now that you could see the sun coming up and shining down on the top of the clouds. And I believe that's Mount Jefferson and the Sisters in the background there, the mountains. But Mount Hood is the day when we went after a big storm where there were 60-mile-an-hour winds, and the rime ice had built up on all of the mountains. And we may be able to find another one in here somewhere about that. If not, go on my Facebook page and you'll find. I believe we did that one in May 19th. Or 20th of 2022. But when you get up there, it was a 2 ice axe day. So you go up so high from a ski lift, the Timberline Lodge, and then you go up above and you start the climb on the mountain above the the, the, the ski run. And once you get up to what's called the Hog's Back, it gets pretty steep. And already you're seeing open steam coming out of volcanoes, you know, and I mean, it's deadly gas. You don't want to fall down in there.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're active. So there's one on your right called the Devil's Cauldron, and you go up a little higher. There's another one on your left. Now you're on the Hog's Back. And now you realize you have to go up through what's called the Pearly Gate to get to the summit of Mount Hood, which kind of comes to a peak up there. And that at that point, then when you're on the Hog's Back and on up further, you have to use your 2 ice axes. That day we did, at least. And you cannot rope up, because if you do rope up and one of you on the team goes down, you're probably not going to stop the others, and you're just going to be a tangled mess. And if there are parties below you, you're going to take them out too. So you're kind of on your own. That's why it was to me, it's pretty scary, was to make sure you had to get good purchase with each swing of your axe before you wanted 3 points of contact the whole time. So that really taxed me. But yeah, that photo you showed just was, it was beautiful, clear. The snow was just glistening, and the rime ice buildup on those, on the peaks and things were just amazing. So there you go.
Wow. This is an astonishing photo.
Yeah, so this is not a hard one to get to. When you go up to Mowich Lake, which is the biggest lake in Mount Rainier National Park.
Spell that.
And if you
what lake?
Mowich.
Oh, okay.
I think Mowich is a word that means deer in a Native American language. You can check me on that one.
Okay.
I always give guaranteed answers. If you don't like them, you can give them back. You can check them out and find the real answer. But as I recall, but anyway, so this is called Spray Falls, and the thing I like about this waterfall is it just spreads itself out and then finds its way down, and it's just it's could be my favorite waterfall in Mount Rainier. That, or maybe Comet Falls, one of those two. So it's not too hard to get to. Just go to Mowich Lake. Usually that road doesn't open until later in the year, usually in July, and then go up to Mowich Lake, and then use All Trails or something, and you're going to go off to the right, kind of down the hill, and then if you go above this, you're going to get to a place called Spray Park, which is again very, very beautiful. There is a loop. I've done it with Jake Haynes, and it's kind of a rough one. When you come back up Ipsit, at Ipsit Pass, it's pretty steep, but it is a loop you can do. It brings you back into Mowich Lake. Yep.
All right. Here's Comet Falls. You mentioned that.
There it is.
That's
so that is the. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my. Like I said, I'm not sure which of those two would be my favorite. It would have to be, I think, one of those two. This one's amazing because it's the highest falls. It's 2 stages next to each other, and then just below what you see here is a 3rd stage. And it's the highest falls in Mount Rainier National Park. And when it's full, it is thunderous, and you can come down pretty close to the bottom of it, and the spray comes off and just drenches you. Again, on my Facebook page, I've taken a few videos where you see the water just splashing against the camera screen and kind of blocking it out a little bit. Yeah.
I want to understand. Definitely go to his Facebook page, because there are some actual videos too. You can hear the water.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And if you go a little bit later in the year, I'd say 1st of August to the end of August even, it's up high enough that you can see the beautiful wildflowers that kind of flank it, yellows and pinks and such. And if you go up a little bit higher from here, you reach a place called Van Trump Park, and that one is again stunning. There are more waterfalls up there, and you can just climb, and you look at Mount Rainier and you're pretty sure you could just climb right to the top of it from there, and you would be wrong. It would be
Uh-huh.
not that easy.
Uh-huh.
But you reach out and you touch it, and it's absolutely beautiful. And there's, and if you're lucky, you see some animals along the way and such, and yellow belly marmots are in
Yeah,
the
I got pictures
and
of some of that on the way here.
yeah, yeah,
I had lots of comments in here, mostly all hello, glad to be here, and beautiful, stunning, awesome, no questions at the moment. So I
okay.
acknowledge you have comments. Thank you guys, everybody. Unless I hear a question though, or a comment. I know one of them said, "Oh, I've just lived too far away now." All of a sudden, we all want to be here. Well, my door's open, gang. So, okay, here's another one. This is inside, but it's fun.
Oh yeah. So this is the iFly Center up in South Center area, and again for Jay Kane's birthday, we took him up there, and it's just a lot of fun to be at a place where you can kind of feel what it's like to kind of
Skydive?
be skydiving. And so here I was trying to get I was going to say my sea legs, but in this case it would be my air legs, I guess, where you're trying to figure out
And
how to
this is why.
yeah, and this is why, because here
Are you
oh
attached to
yeah,
that plane? Are you attached to that plane?
well there's a tether.
Okay, that's good.
There, yeah, there's a tether. There are no parachutes, but there is a tether, and this is actually a plane that was in Independence Day. Perhaps you see the part where Mr. Quaid he dust crops a field, and he comes down and he's kind of excited all about it, and then I think Will Smith says, "You dusted the wrong field."
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if you look at that airplane, that's the same one.
All right. I showed this one earlier. This is you and Jan. Do all your kids
Yeah.
have J names?
Well, no, actually, we chose not to. We could have Jay and Jan, but we have um, our oldest daughter, Amy, and then Ryan and Brianne. Yeah.
Welcome back, Hannah.
Hey,
Um,
I don't know what happened.
yeah, I'm glad you're back. You're missing a
Me
lot of
too.
fun here. I knew a Jay and I think her name was Jane in Cle Elum growing up. They had 11 kids and they all were named Jay. Well, with the name
Wow.
Jay, starting with the name Jay. I
Wow.
said, I think they came pretty close to running out of J's by after 11 of them.
Yeah.
But they ended up moving to, I want to say, someplace in Alaska. I want to say
Juno.
Homer. I want to say Homer. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I thought they would. I thought they'd choose a J name to move to a J town like Juno.
Yes. Yes. Okay, here's another picture I showed earlier. Here's the other one I showed earlier. And here
So this
go.
This is about 2 weeks ago, up on Highway 101, up on the Hood Canal. You come up off of the Hood Canal and move up through a watershed called the Duckabush. And this is Murhut, Murhut. And as you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we had really high waters in a lot of places following a lot of the just a lot of rain. And so my wife and I, we took that hike. It's not far. It's a little less than a mile to get to it, and it's a double stage waterfall. And again, if you get near it or get under it, you're going to get drenched.
You get wet.
You can actually, during the summer when it's lower, you can actually cross the little stream and go in behind it. But I've taken my grandkids, my 8-year-old grandkids were up there last summer, and you have to climb up some roots to get up there. And they thought it was great fun and a great adventure. So I'm trying really hard to get my grandkids involved in as much adventure as possible. But yes, they have been underneath the highest stage of that 2-stage waterfall.
You said roots, ROOTS, meaning pulling yourself up by roots. Oh, wow.
You do, yeah. Roots are exposed everywhere, and so you're just grabbing roots and pulling yourself up the side. Yeah.
And now we're coming into a series of some of the pictures you've taken of animals during your treks. So
I've been very fortunate. I've been very, very fortunate. So That sure looks familiar.
Yeah.
So years ago, there were mountain goats out here on the Olympic Peninsula. They've
Yes.
since been transferred or moved out or in some cases exterminated. But when I used to go up Mount Eleanor in the June-ish time, then oftentimes there would be mountain goats there with their little kids. So there'd be nannies and billies, mostly nannies and billies, not so much, but yeah, I like this one here. So, and it was always amazing to me to just look at these little kids and see how quickly they would get their legs and how they loved to go. Yeah, that one, the mom was ready to jump across that little ravine there, and the kid was not looking and came up right at the same time as she was jumping and almost got him.
Mhm.
But he would have, but he, they have such great balance and such that I think she would
Absolutely.
have been okay. Yep. Yep.
I went to the Olympic Peninsula when there were, and this is before I went down to Hollywood, so it was in the 80s or 70s, and I went up high enough to where I actually saw some mountain goats too. Yeah.
That's great. Good for you. Yeah. Yeah. But again, the kids are my favorite. They are
Yeah.
just
So little
so,
babies. I have,
yeah.
I have domestic goats at my house, and I had them when they were babies. They are just an absolute hoot to watch when they're
Yeah. Yeah.
when they're having fun. Oh my gosh.
Did
Are
you
they
did you bring one to a, yeah, I thought you brought one to a meeting once. Is that true
I
or
think
not? Is
yes,
that
I
me?
did. Yes, I did. When they were
Yes, you
baby
did.
babies.
Yes, you did.
Yep. Here's some foxes.
This is a Cascade Red Fox, and this was a mom and her two kits that was up near Paradise. Um, just as a note, please don't feed the wild animals, because what happens is they become dependent then on humans for their food, and then they lose their sense um,
Hmm.
their instincts kind of stop working in terms of being able to, find food, hunt their own food, and then also then their kids don't get that, and Cascade Red Fox is kind of in trouble. Um, for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them. But the range and the just but they're a beautiful animal.
Wow, they really
And
are. Here's another.
yes, this one is actually the one that probably hangs around the roads and stuff and is looking for handouts and things, and that was unfortunate to see.
Yeah.
I felt really great seeing it. I enjoyed seeing it, but I also realized that since its ability to hunt was probably ruined by humans. Yeah.
If you drive up around Point Defiance and do the 5 mile
Yeah.
drive, which you can't do right now, um, there are raccoons all along there that have
Yes.
been that,
Yeah.
and it says, "Don't feed the raccoons, don't feed the raccoons." But obviously, people are feeding the raccoons because they're right beside the road, just going, "Hello, here I am, here I am."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I almost mentioned that in the same breath, and so that goes for all animals. Just let them be animals. Let them be wild.
yes,
This was last fall up on the just above Paradise again, and I this is one of my favorite photos because of the colors that surround it.
yes,
And I mean,
yes.
not a bad place to be if you're a deer.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so marmots are one of my favorites.
I love marmots.
I just, you know, this is again, I believe that one might be above Paradise as well. And if you go up the Skyline Trail, yeah, no, that one I think is in front of Reflection Lake, and it was just hanging out on a rock there, no
Wow.
concerns whatsoever, just inherent trust and yeah. So marmots are one of my favorites.
All righty. Here we go. This is fun.
Yeah. Now, so when I told you I have two crazy friends, Jake Haynes and Dan Tolson, years ago, Dan Tolson said, "Hey Jay, have you been around the Wonderland Trail?" And I said, "The what?" And he said, "The Wonderland Trail." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." And he said, "It's 93 to 5 miles, and it goes all the way around Mount Rainier." And I said, "Oh, I'm in." So we talked about it a couple of years, and then he said, then we decided, hey, we better put a date on. So unfortunately, what happened then was it was the same time as COVID, as the pandemic was hitting. So we didn't get to have the permits and things that we were hoping for. And so we looked at each other and said, well, you don't have to have permits if you do it all during the day. So we went all around this 95-mile Wonderland Trail in 4.5 days, coming out each night. So we weren't camping on the trail. We were just coming just outside the park, sometimes in a hotel or even driving home, and then getting up the next morning really early, and away we went. So it took us 4.5 days in a row to go around there. And on probably about the third or so day, we were just out of sunrise and walking along that trail you see, and Dan Tolson kind of quietly said, there's a bear right there. And I'm looking around, I cannot see it. And he goes, no, it's right behind you. And so turned around, and this bear was working its way up this little ravine there, and
toward the trail.
It was it was coming right down, right to the trail we were on, but I couldn't resist. And so I started taking a video and then a couple of still shots of it, and you could hear it tearing up the earth. You literally could hear it tearing the earth up and grunting every time it was pulling, some up. And it had no interest in us, and we were being careful. And so after a few minutes, after probably less than a minute or so, then we thought, well, it's probably going to keep coming up the trail, and it's either going to come toward us or away from us. So, let's keep moving. So true to life, as we stopped filming the video, then it did come up to the trail, and then it chose to go the other way, and then that was it. But yeah, it's a beautiful. And by the way, I know we should have a healthy respect for wildlife, as I mentioned before, and including, just for, not to get too close or to threaten or get in between mamas and babies and things like that. But if my research is correct, in Mount Rainier National Park, there have been well over 100 deaths recorded, anywhere from climbing deaths to, people just having a heart attack while you're up there, or even auto accidents. There's been some, triple digit deaths recorded. And of all those, guess how many are animal deaths by animals? 0.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know, yes, take a bear spray. Yes, take a bell with you to let the animals know that you're around. Yes, do all those things, but I don't think it should stop you from getting out there.
I totally agree. When I lived in Cleveland, we had motorcycles, and I was on this trail one day, and I saw some movement ahead that I could not identify. So I stopped. I immediately stopped. There's something ahead on the trail in the trees, and it was a mother bear with her cubs. And she stood up, and I went, oh, sure. Okay, and I just turned around and left. She saw me, and had I not seen the movement, within seconds I would have been between her and her cubs, and I could have been in trouble because they can't see very well. She heard me and she was looking at me, but she didn't know what I was either. And because I saw her in enough time, I saw movement and stopped. She just like, who are you? And I saw what was going on, and I turned around and left. She didn't chase me. She didn't, you just have to be aware. And there are YouTube videos of hunters up in the trees, and the bears come right up in the tree right next to them and see you and back down. They're not people eaters. They're herbivores and omnivores. And generally, they are protecting something. They've been injured, and if you shoot them, they might come after you. And they don't see very well. So if you get too close, they might, you might get within their flight distance and think fight or flight. They will flee or fight. But if you're paying it, even sharks have a defensive mechanism. They arch their back and say you're getting too close.
Sure.
So all the animals have these behaviors and flight distances and all these things. And if you respect that, deer can walk up to you, bears can walk up to you and sniff you and walk off. They're not looking to eat you.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you put that plug in. One time Dan Tolson and I were over at the Enchanted Valley, which is again on the other side of the Olympic Peninsula toward the ocean, Quinault, the Quinault Lake area. And yeah, true to life, there's a ranger's cabin up near the end where a lot of the waterfalls and things are. And yeah, there was a mother bear in the meadow. We only saw one cub, but when we clicked our hiking poles together, then this bear found a kind of a tree about that angle and just scurried up at the little cub did just as fast as he could. And you know, we just wanted him to know we were there. And then we walked along the side of the trail, you know, away from, kind of to the side and away from him, and you know, bid good day.
Right. Yeah. No, I also had a dear friend who used to work for Microsoft, and he had grown up in New York City. And one day he called me up in a total panic. Oh, Chris, Microsoft is sending us, oh no, out into the woods. And I said, where are you going? He says, I'm going to Maine. I said, oh my God, that sounds wonderful. He said, there's bears there. And I went, Cleve, it's okay. He just was absolutely panicked. I grew up with bears all around me, you know? I think it's that. See, you have two varieties of people who don't know any better. One is the Walt Disney Bambi type, who will like pour honey on a child's hand and try to feed it to the bear. Not a good idea, because the bear doesn't know the difference between a hand and honey. And the people who are terrified of them. If wild animals were as horrible or as predacious as we, you know, tend to think they are because of the scary movies we've seen, human beings would never have evolved. We would have all been eaten up a long time ago when there were a lot more of them than there are of us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have another bear story, but I can, when we get to Mount Whitney, I'll tell it to you.
Okay. And here's one. You're going to have to explain this one, Jay, because this one, I don't believe you.
That's a great story. And leave it that it is a story. But so for April Fool's Day on my post, I had found that on the internet somewhere. And so that was just a repost. But what was the funny story about it was that I was with my twin 8-year-olds back in Boston area where they live. And we were in a place called Rock Meadow in Belmont, Massachusetts. And so it was nighttime and we were still out for a walk. And you know, my grandkids were asking about aliens and did I believe in aliens and what they did or didn't believe about aliens and everything. And I said, well, I'm not really sure, but I know something about Bigfoot. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you know, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, luckily I was running along the Ording trail, you know, the Foothills Trail in the Ording area and run along the river. And I saw this right there. And they looked at it and they were like, whoa, you're going to be famous. You got this picture. And I said, yeah, I said, but I'm not sure I was really smart because as I took out my camera to take a picture, then it yelled out really loud, no photos. and I said, but I just couldn't resist. So I hurried and took a picture and then just started running like crazy. And my two grandkids are like, Ogo, you could, they call me Ogo, which is short for, oh, great one, by the way. I didn't. So they said, Ogo, you could have been hurt or killed. I said, no, I ran really, really fast. And so we had a lot of fun until finally they realized it was all
And here's some more absolutely amazing photos. Don't know if you have stories to go with them, but I have to show them.
I'll make them short. Yeah, that's actually, I was coming home from Carbon River. And this is down in Ording, where I think actually this was the Puyallup River that was coming down through, but it was right at that bridge when you leave Ording. And so I hurried and parked and I knew the colors were going to change quickly. So I went running across the bridge. I think the motorists were wondering what I was doing, but I just had to get that before it changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's some of those amazing colors that you mentioned.
Yeah, not too far. That's just up above Paradise, like just barely above Paradise. And I like to try to catch the sun, especially when there are rays and things, and try to get that really bright color. Yeah.
And this is this Arches National Monument?
You nailed it. That's
All
exactly
right.
what it is.
Because I lived
Yeah,
in
that's, I think,
Colorado for a while.
I think that's called Windows.
Oh.
This particular one. So you see not only two holes in the front, in the foreground, but then if you look behind it, then you see another arch. And I went there. My youngest daughter and her husband, Brianne and Isaac, went down there along with my wife and her parents, and we just had a blast. If you ever get a chance, Arches National Park is second to none in terms of the red rock and the color.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
And that's very famous. That's on the license plate in Utah.
Yes.
That is called Delicate Arch. And I think the thing that makes that one so unique is just that it kind of stands out by itself. It's just out in the middle of, it just stand, like a lot of the arches you see down there are tied next to a, like a ledge or other landforms, other rocks. And this one is just by itself. So I have no idea how, and it's sizable. Yeah. So it's a hike if you want to get there.
That's one of the reasons I think Mount Rainier is so outstanding too, is because it's standing there by itself. When I lived in Colorado for a while, there was Pikes Peak and there were all these other peaks, and I had to go, which one is Pikes Peak?
Right.
Because you just couldn't, you couldn't tell. It didn't have a banner on it, and it was like, well, okay, well it's not as impressive as when it's standing all by itself doing its solo thing, as volcanoes are here in Washington.
Yeah. So this is maybe my favorite picture I ever took. And Dan Tolson and I, this was on the Wonderland Trail, and Jake Haynes and Dan Tolson and I had been making our way around the trail. And this was near the very end. Actually, this was the last day. And the weather had been a little iffy throughout the day. So we started at White River and we ended at Box Canyon. And this is up on what's called the Cowlitz Divide, above Indian Bar. And the whole way is just unbelievable. You go over the Panhandle Gap, which is the highest point on the Wonderland Trail. I think it's in the sixes. And then you keep moving down, and kind of right where you see that gray side, there's a former glacier that kind of created Indian Bar. And then you come up over it, and then finally now we're up on the Cowlitz Divide. And we saw mountain goats that day, and there were waterfalls everywhere. And so we turned around, and I almost didn't finish the trail that day. And I think Dan got a little bit worried about me because I just kept taking more pictures. I just could not get enough, and this was one of them. And I'm actually really proud because this particular photo was selected from Mountain Forecast. If you go on, a lot of the climbers use mountainforecast.com to find out the conditions on the mountains pretty much anywhere. It's a great site, by the way. It tells you the temperature at different levels. It tells you the wind chill. It tells you the forecast coming up, and it really is what I use all the time if we're going to climb any high mountains. And they selected this one as their banner, I guess, for Mount Rainier National Park, but also for Mount Rainier, but also for kind of like the Pacific, the Cascades and such. And so these flowers, this was August 1st, 2020, and the flowers in the foreground combined with the greenery and then just the sheer immensity of Mount Rainier made this my favorite picture.
It's a fabulous, fabulous photo.
Thank you.
Was that during the same trip, the same 4-day trip where you saw the bear?
Yes. In fact, it was the day before that we saw the bear, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay, and here's another.
This was just one of those lucky ones. Let's see. This was actually taken from the Tacoma area. And I was at a friend's house, Lloyd Oaks, and we were out on his patio, and I said, "Oh, I got to grab my camera because it's not often that you see that reflection on that west side of Mount Rainier."
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to be up in the middle of the mountains sometimes to capture some of the sheer beauty. You just have to, keep I just use an iPhone just keep something that takes a picture near you, and then just always be watching for things like shadows, like the sunset. Watch, water does interesting things to photos.
The clouds over the clouds over the mountain.
Clouds,
Yeah.
absolutely, clouds, and then also there's contrast. Watch for the contrast of the dark and the light and the blues and the orange, and yeah.
I'm very, very close to a place where I can see Mount Rainier all the time, and I always look because it's never the same.
Yeah, it
Because
isn't. It's just unbelievable.
The clouds and the angle of the sun or the moon, and it's an amazing. My mom always called it, that's my mountain. Everybody here calls it my mountain. And another thing we do strangely up here is because we have weather up here, if you don't like the weather in Washington, wait 15 minutes, it'll change. On the days you can see the mountain, we say the mountain is out.
Yeah, the mountain. The mountain.
The mountain is out. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's a picture of Jay holding Mount Rainier in his hand, right? Is that Mount Rainier?
Yeah, that is Mount Rainier. I think that might have been up on Pinnacle Peak. Don't quote me on that one. Actually, I don't. Actually, you know what? I have no idea where I was.
Okay. Here's another one.
Yeah, if you capture, this is on the Skyline Trail, and those are the peaks that are in the Tatoosh range. A lot of times Mount Rainier gets all the press, but don't discount that middle one is Pinnacle Peak. And when you get up on the top, it's a little bit of a scramble when you get toward the top, but you look over toward Paradise, beautiful, and then on the right is Plummer Peak, and on the left it might be Castle, and but yeah, all those Tatoosh mountains are pretty amazing. When you get to Paradise next time, the parking lot, just look out to your south.
Okay.
But again, if you capture the wildflowers, there are different kinds of. There's an avalanche and a glacier lily. So the avalanche and the glacier are white, and then in fact in this you can see both colors.
Yes.
Yeah, the avalanche is the white, I believe, and the glacier is the yellow. I may be wrong.
And here's the picture I have behind me, but the whole shot instead of just a little piece of it.
Yeah, so I had been up on Mount Rainier that day, and as I'm coming back, I started to watch these lenticular clouds start to form, and they were one after another, and so I got to a vantage point and stopped and took this one. And what I loved about it was there was kind of like a crown or a frisbee around the top of it, like a halo. But it was just amazing how it would just form, and then it would move off, and then another would start, and then it would move off, and it was just one after another. Incidentally, when I posted that, I did have people, make comments that it's proof that there are, UFOs, and this is
correct.
This was.
It kind of looks like the Enterprise at warp speed flying by.
This year earlier, there was an awful lot of snow, and it was so heavy that it just covered up the smaller trees.
Yes.
And yeah, you can run into snow. This is a day that I meant to summit Mount Eleanor, and as I got up just below the winter chute, which is kind of steep, and and you can get avalanches through that chute, then I was breaking through, and I didn't bring any snowshoes that day. And so when it got above my waist and up toward my chest, then I said, yeah, that's probably time to turn around. But
yeah, I think so. Here's another one.
Yeah, I didn't bring a snorkel, so I just thought it got too high. Yeah.
Here's another lenticular.
Yeah, this is lenticular. It's up by Frozen Lake. This is on the Wonderland Trail in between. That stretches Mowich Lake over to Sunrise. It's a pretty large stretch. And Jay Keynes and I were hiking, and we had gone up Grand Park. And then right when we got toward Frozen Lake, then we turned around, and it was just like that perfect halo.
This one you'll have to explain.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is one I've been waiting for. So there are only a few places in North America that have these. When we summited Mount Rainier, July 24th, 2021, we were amazed by these nieves penitentes. So that's, snow penitents, if you will.
Ah,
So these are, think of upside down icicles. Think
uh-huh.
of, these are very, very hard, and they were about 2 to 3 feet high that day. And you'll have to Google it. Look up Nieves, and it's Nieves penitentes, penitentes.
So that's a
And these are in
Spanish word.
Spanish word. And if you go to South America in the Andes, you'll see these that are a lot taller.
Uh-huh.
But these are not found really. Mount Adams, I've seen pictures. I haven't seen them in person at Mount Adams, and then in person I saw these on Mount Rainier. So what's cool about these is look for a second at the look at the grays,
Mm-hmm.
and if you just stare only at the grays seem like they're coming down toward the bottom of the picture.
Yes, they do.
And now turn the white and look at only the white, and you can claim that they're going straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so
Optical
in this,
illusion? Is
it's
it
an optical illusion. It is. It's an optical illusion. It's, where you have to know what you're looking for. So in this case, this was these actually are pointing upward.
They all are.
They are. Then the gray space you see is the
Space
dead
between
space.
them.
Yeah, it's the space between. It's the dead space. And
Uh-huh.
so when you go up, when we were climbing the standard route up above Paradise, up through Camp Muir, and then on up to the Disappointment Cleaver, and then above the Disappointment Cleaver, that's when we found these. So we were probably 12, 13,000 feet above sea level at that point. And I was really tired, and I was kind of holding on to these because you're roped up, and so you don't have any hiking poles, and you have an ice axe in one hand, and then the other you keep free. You got the rope, and you kind of keep the other hand free. And that free hand, I was using these almost like, I don't know, like stanchions, or like, when you're walking up something of a stairway or something. I was using these to help me kind of get to the top. They were that tall.
Wow.
And yeah, so Nieves penitentes, worth looking up.
I will. Okay, and here's
It looks
another.
like something you would see under a microscope.
Yeah, it looks like something you see under a microscope. It
Yes.
doesn't look like they're real, but they were very real. Yep. So that is Green Lake. This one, if you go up the Carbon River and past the Carbon River Ranger Station in Mount Rainier, this area is actually considered a rainforest just below here, and they don't call it Green Lake for nothing.
Really?
The day I was up there was just phenomenal. You can see the images of the trees, the reflection in the water, the greens, and if you look up that draw up to the white up there, that's the backside of Tolmie Peak. There's a fire lookout up there. If you go up to Mowich Lake and hike up, you can hike on up to the fire lookout called, it's the Tolmie Peak fire lookout. And this is the backside of there. Yep.
Okay, and here's you on Tacoma Narrows. Is this? No, this is Evergreen Trail Run. Where's
it
that?
is. So this is over in Stillicum. If you go to this was put on by Evergreen Trail Series, and so they're trail marathons. So this was a marathon where you do several loops from Western State, kind of near Western State Hospital, and then you're kind of going up. I think there's Hog Lake up in there, and there's some, and you just keep doing loops and loops and loops. And I thought it was ironic that look at my bib number.
Yes, I saw that.
And So I had a devil of a time getting through that marathon, but I did it.
Okay, now here's a couple I know you're going to want to talk about. I think these two follow each other. There's this one and this one. Was that the same climb?
It actually was different.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. This is Mount Hood, and this
Mhm.
is the Pearly Gates. And the Pearly Gates, you can kind of go to the left one or the right one. And this is where you use the two ice axes. It actually is a lot
Ah,
steeper than this. It's steeper than what this picture portrays.
wow.
And that is actually me up at the top there, the black dot.
Uh-huh.
And Jordan Ford was taking this picture from below me. You had to be kind of careful not to go one right after another because you were kicking free ice and things and it was coming down. But I tell you, you can't really let go because you got to keep hold of your 3 points of contact. So you pretty much just have to duck your head. You have helmets on, and you just kind of got to duck your head and hope the ice that's dropping down through there doesn't hit you too, knock you down.
Wow.
But yeah, and then the second one is up high on Mount Rainier. It varies every time, but there are enough crevasses that you have to sometimes a ladder. Now, guides from one of the guide services, they drag these things up there. I have no idea how they do it. These guys, my hat's off to them. But I
Really?
thank them every time. Yeah, so they anchor these. And some people say, well, Jay, why didn't you just walk around the right there? Why did you decide to go across that? But that's another optical illusion. There's actually when you go around a crevasse, it's called end run. But you can't end run this one. This was one that just went on for a long time. And so they dropped a ladder across it. And then that's actually me crossing that ladder. And that's, and these are people above me, Rob Evans, and they have anchored into the snow and ice there. And so you try to be as safe as you can going across there, but you have crampons on. So crampons are kind of like steel, cleats, if you will. And then you're not only crossing a aluminum ladder when it's really cold and it's dark. This is the middle of the night. You always go at night
Uh-huh.
because it reduces your risk of ice fall or rock fall at the hotter part of the day. And so you'll see a lot of people climb all night. It's not my favorite. I don't really enjoy, I'd rather sleep, but
Yes.
that's how you do it. And so this one here is just one aluminum ladder that was necessary, but later they had to put two together to get across that same crevasse. And then that was the summer. It was so hot that at that point they actually closed it down.
The 115-degree summer.
Yep, that was that year. And
Yeah.
so they closed this down not too long after that.
Here's you at Mount Whitney, summit of Mount Whitney.
Yeah, so the Mount Whitney is higher than Mount Rainier by about 95 feet. It's
Mm-hmm.
14,505. And these are my friends that, Dallin, James, and Paul. And we climbed that. It's a one-day climb for us. We did one day. And you start down in California about a little over 100 miles away from the lowest point in the United States, which is Death Valley.
Uh-huh.
So isn't that interesting? It's I don't know, it's minus a couple of 100 feet sea level, and then you drive another 120 or 100 and some miles, and then you get the highest point in the outside of Alaska, and what's particularly interesting about this climb is it's not technical.
Uh-huh.
There's a couple, there are places you can probably get in trouble, but at one point, Chris, there are 97 switchbacks in a row.
Wow.
And with the bear story that I was going to tell you is that this particular day, I was sick. I was throwing up.
Oh,
Sometimes that happens, and it
yeah.
wasn't elevation sickness. It's just I just had gone a couple of days without sleep, or I had picked up a bug somewhere, or probably didn't help on the drive down that I got the biggest milkshake I could find and just drank it all the way down.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, for whatever reason, when I woke up in the middle of the night to start the climb, I didn't have much balance, and so I'd thrown up a couple times. So after the second time, I'm like, I better really hurry and try to get up these 97 switchbacks, or else I'm not gonna make the summit, and I really wanted to.
Uh-huh.
So I got to the top, and on one side you look over into Sequoia National Park, and then you look back where you came from, and you look up at Inyo National Forest, and it's unbelievable sight. Well, there was a woman there who passed me, and I was going as fast as I could, and she passed me going up, and then she stopped at the top, and I stopped at the top, and we started talking, and she said, "Yeah, I'm waiting for my companion. He's down there." And I said, "Yeah, I'm waiting for my two companions. I had to leave them because I just had to hurry while I was feeling well." And she said, "Yeah, I had to come. My mom made me. I had to come with somebody else." And I said, "Well, why?" She goes, "Well, I was attacked by a bear about 8-10 days ago." And I said, "Really?" And
Oh.
she took her shirt sleeve and showed a big gash out of her arm.
Oh, wow.
So now now in defense of the bear, here's what happened.
Uh-huh.
So she was hiking alone, and in her words, she had secured her food, but she still had food on her breath. And she said, and I probably didn't smell very good after a few days out in the mountains.
Right.
And so, as you said, Chris, bears have great smell.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's in a little bivvy, a little teeny tent by herself in the middle of the night. And all of a sudden, this bear, I'm sure, thought,
Yeah.
wonder what's inside. Yeah, there's some food in there. So
Yeah.
it took a big swipe out of the tent, cut the tent, cut her sleeve, cut in, and went into her arm. And then she started yelling and kicking and screaming, and then it ran off. And then you can imagine that must have been a long night for her, waiting to know, do I go down in the dark? Do I not? If I do, what? Now I've got blood. I've got blood, and
Yeah.
that's going to smell. And so she was my hero. She was really brave, and 8 to 10 days later, she was back out there.
Wow. Wanted to ask
Amazing.
you about these signs. Are those signs left up there all the time so that whoever summits can do that? Or did you bring them
Yeah.
up?
No, somebody has those up there, and it's the only summit I've ever been on where I've seen something like that. Yeah. They're
Very
metal.
Okay, and
Here's the open vent that I was telling you about on Mount Hood. This is looking down the Hog's Back. You can see kind of the snow is a different color on one side,
mm-hmm.
and so you actually come up on where the snow is the lighter color to my left of the, and then but it's just active the whole time, and boy does it smell.
And if the wind changed, it could get you, huh?
It's pretty smelly.
Yeah. And here?
This is in Arches. No, I'm wrong. These are my grandkids, and they are at a place down in Oregon, Nescolin. And so this is kind of fun. This is Proposal Rock, they call it. And I'm really trying to get them to have a sense of adventure. And so we try to get them into places that where they can still feel comfortable, but just stretch themselves.
Okay, now we're going to do, I think we're not quite out of the mountains. Let's see if I can get us out of the mountains before I go somewhere else here.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so this is a place called Rocky Brook Waterfall, and this is only a 100-yard walk. So when you go up toward Brennan on Highway 101 out on the Olympic Peninsula, then and it's actually private property, but they allow access, and so it's called Rocky Brook. And the day we were there, it was just unbelievably high. The flow was heavy, and so I tried to get as close as I could, and boy, did I get drenched. Here's back to on the way up to Mount Whitney. And that's actually ice on that little lake there.
Yes, I can see that.
We had to break the ice to get water. And
okay.
then,
go ahead.
This is the Uinta. No, that's okay. And then these are the Uintas, If you go in the fall down in Utah, up out of like this was Provo, in between, yeah, kind of Provo area.
Mm-hmm.
There are some hikes that take you up high, and the colors are unbelievably. There are oranges and yellows, pinks, unbelievable.
And one more in the woods, and then I'm going to bring you out of the woods.
Yeah, this is Mount Washington, out here on the Olympic Peninsula. These trees up there are not, they could give us a lesson in endurance. Uh, these trees will be completely covered over with snow in the winter. And all you see is just rime ice that's been built up that just kind of creates all kinds of character formations if you use your imagination. But somehow these trees survive year after year, and you can see they bend and they twist and they do whatever. But in the end, these have always come back. I've been up there for many years, and they just keep coming back. But that's Mount Washington looking from Mount Eleanor.
All right, now I'm going to bring us out of the woods, and
Okay.
a little bit about some of what you do.
Yeah, we years ago we realized that there were a few things for people out in South Pierce County to do in terms of like shows and fairs and things. And so, we have the wonderful, Frontier Park and such, but we, as a school district, we decided to work with nonprofits to bring what's called All Bethel Community Day. And what we found is that every year we try to, minus COVID years, we try to bring fun and entertainment and education to one of our schools, high schools. And, one of the things that we realized is that people really want to get together and learn. And so we have up to 200 tables and booths, both for profit and nonprofit. And then we have a lot of community as well as school groups that perform musically or otherwise. If you've got a talent, hey, if you've got a camel, bring your camel. Whatever you got, just bring it to the All Bethel Community Day. We have Black Hawk helicopters. We have Rosie Thun, famous, who jumps out of an airplane and parachutes into ABC Day. We have professional wrestlers, if you want that. We've got anything and everything.
One year.
Yeah, we have a lot of variation, and we've been able to get up to about 8,000 or 9,000 people that come and visit that day, and it's free, all free. You could come, and even there are food trucks and things, but you don't have to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to 2 of those, and they're absolutely fabulous. And talk about a way to get the community involved in Bethel, to let them know this is a happening place.
Yeah, well,
they have robotics. They have robotics going on. They have just all kinds of stuff going on, so you can see the kids are really, really engaged in their educational stuff too. So it's very cool.
Yeah. October 7th, 2023, Graham Kapowson High School.
All right, and gonna jump to this. That's another Sound to Narrows.
Yeah. So this gentleman to my my left, if you will, or right in real life, that's Jake Haynes. And then right behind him is Dan Tolson, partners in crime. And then we also have Hannah and Kyle. So we have Kyle straight. We have a lot of fun together. And this was the Sound to Narrows this last year. They had their 50th. And again, Danette Felt puts on a great event. It's 12K, and you can see it's well attended.
Yes,
a lot of fun.
And I did this one year with you, and I'd love to do it again.
Yes, you
Dr.
did.
Seuss Day.
Yeah. So we try to celebrate reading, and that's Mike Sandner and Anu Chapin and Karen Marcassini and Chris, you came and helped us one day, but we just try to do everything we can to make reading fun, bring it to life.
The day I was there, I visited, I think, 3 or 4 different classrooms and read "Oh, the Places You'll Go" by Dr. Seuss. And oh my gosh, it was so much fun. The kids were absolutely captivated. It was just really, and then it was like, where is that book? I have not read that book. So they were going to go and get that book afterwards.
Well, you're so animated. Come often. Come often.
I would love to. Just let me know when and I'll be there.
Okay.
And then a couple of more, because after all, okay, go ahead and tell about this one. Then we're going to do some oopsies.
Yeah, a few of those. So this particular event is we try really hard to get grants and things that bring money into our community, and this is money given by Patty Murray and senators, U.S. Senators Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell, so we can break ground for a Bethel Family Center. This is 166th and Pacific Avenue in Spanaway, and so Katie McConnell's on the right of our picture, and then I just got to say a few words that day along with Patty Murray. We're really trying hard to serve the community as much as we can, bring as many things to this area as possible, build the quality of life for everyone.
Yes. Okay, now we're going to show what happens when everything doesn't go just right. It has nothing to do with bears either. Here is Jay and a friend. Yes. On a bike trip. Is that Ording?
This actually is down in Hillsboro, Oregon, and this is Merritt Phillips. We were boyhood friends who then got reconnected about 40 some years later. It's another story. It could be another story.
Okay.
But yeah.
I ride the Ording Trail very, very, very frequently during the spring, summer, and fall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
And here's Jay. He was going to do the Seattle to Portland bike-a-thon. It's almost 200 miles. Right. 1 year, and he didn't quite make it up the starting gate. And this is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did the shortened version of that event, Chris. I did the Seattle to Seward Park, 11 miles. I only got 11 miles before my friend Sean Pyatt was together, and he didn't make it up the last hill, and I was distracted, which, there's another lesson. I got distracted and was watching over my shoulder for him and turned around, and everybody was stopping for a stop sign, or, because someone had directed them to stop down below, waiting for, letting the cars go through. And I panicked a little bit and hit the left brake too hard. The old saying is light on the left, because the left brake controls that front brake, the front wheel, and I went over the handlebars and ended up waking up in Harborview.
Ow, ow. Yeah, I
broke
your
some
arm.
facial bones, broke my clavicle bone, broke my above my little knuckle on my hand, broke ribs. So I guess that just goes to show you that if you love adventures, that there is inherent danger, and that was my own fault. I should never have had that happen had I just not hit that left brake, or got distracted and just stayed focused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, we love to get together with some of our friends. So we love, Rainier. This is Rhubarb. It's come Rainiers, and I believe this was at an All Bethel Community Day. I'm not sure, but love the Rainiers. That's the end of our Jay photos.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to hang with us, Jay. You're certainly welcome to if you'd like to. But I'm going to make a few announcements here too. So.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and hang around.
All righty. I know Hannah had a joyride, but then she got disconnected from us. I have a picture here. You want to talk about your joyride, your dad's birthday?
Sure. We celebrated my dad's birthday. We had tacos for dinner, when we celebrated, because he just absolutely loves tacos. And we got him this cupcake pull-apart cake in the shape of a taco and decorated like a taco.
That's adorable.
Those are a bunch of cupcakes.
Uh-huh. All right. And, I wanted to ask Jay, have you ever done bungee jumping?
That's something I wish I could say I have, and I have not yet. So I got to put that on my bucket list.
Bucket list? Okay. Yeah, I thought, I don't think okay. All right. Okay, I have a couple of, let me go into the comments. We haven't talked to anybody yet today, and we need to do that. Guys, thank you for hanging with us. I'll very quickly, we got to a lot of highs at the very beginning. I can't, oh, that's Hannah saying I can't get back on. We knew that for a while. Isn't technology grand? Taking care of everything takes so much time. Yeah, I was never good at running. They're commenting on some of the stuff we've been saying. Which do you prefer, hiking or running, Jay?
You know, in my 50s, it was running to kind of get myself in shape and whatnot. But honestly, I love hiking and climbing more. I feel like when you're out in the mountains, it's hard to beat. So I like the endorphins from running, but I probably like the scenery more from hiking.
Okay. And she asked, is there anything you want to try that you haven't had the opportunity to do yet, other than the bungee jumping, which we just mentioned?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I want to climb some more mountains. I've climbed 4 of the 5 volcanoes in Washington State. I want to climb the 5th, which is Glacier Peak, which is about a 32-mile round trip and quite a bit of elevation gain. And then I would like to climb Mount Olympus because I love the Olympic Peninsula, and that's the highest mountain over here. Again, it's 19 miles to the base, and then it's the climb and then back, down and 19 miles out. So those are probably going to take a little more execution, 2-3 days. And then there's some more mountains I want to climb. I want to go back up on some plains and do some wing walking. Yeah, those are some things I'd like to do.
I have heard, and I don't know this, I haven't experienced it enough to really be able to tell you what I think. I've heard a lot of people say, gosh, you think about the hike up as being grueling. The hike down is also quite the trip because it's different muscles, and you're looking down, and well, depends on what you're doing. Do you ever come down a mountain backward? Because
I have. Yes, I have. Couple of times, either because it's steep and you need to, like Mount Hood,
right,
or
the double axe place.
Yeah, when you got to have 2 ice axes, you're going to come down backwards. And then the other, or like on the Grand Teton, rappelling down off the top of Grand Teton or things. And then the only other time I've had to is when I was too sore. I pushed it too hard for 2 days in a row, and honestly, when I climbed up wherever I was that day, I just couldn't walk forward down because it just was too painful, and so I had to turn around and walk backwards. I thought if I met somebody on the trail, they'd think that was pretty funny.
Have you ever done the Grand Canyon, down to the Grand Canyon and back up?
I haven't. I want to do that too. I think that'd be a lot. Yeah. We want to we might try to do Kilimanjaro this year.
Oh, wow.
And so we might go back to Mount Whitney because some of my friends couldn't go that day. So,
if you remember, Jay, I've asked 3 people this and they always forget. So I don't know if it's going to happen either. Bring me a rock from the Serengeti. And I don't mean a pretty rock. I mean a rock that animals have kicked around for 1,000,000 years. I just want a rock from the Serengeti. Or someplace in Africa where, the animals, the wildebeests and the whatevers have been kicking it around. I would just love to have something like that. So
okay, see what we can do. If I get down there. Yep.
Okay. What else do we have? Pretty clouds. Yes, beautiful. I've got all of these absolute comments about. Yeah. That like's hard for me to get to from New York. Yeah, well, you were just here. Hannah, you can come back. No, that's not the one we saw. We saw Snoqualmie Falls. And you didn't have to walk very far to get to that. It's been almost 30 years since I've been there, but I remember Mount Rainier National Park was awesome. Yeah. I didn't know that about not feeding wild animals. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't feed them. Yeah. Don't feed them. Yeah. Oh my goodness, about the bear. Glad we don't have bears in the UK. Beautiful photos. Great pics. Thanks for sharing. These photos are all so pretty. Death Valley is a place you want to stay hydrated. Boy, howdy.
So true.
Okay, we're through the comments now. All righty, so I need to make a few announcements. DeForest Kelley's 103rd birthday just passed on the 20th, and there have been quite a few things about him in the news. So I wrote an article on my blog on actually what it was is a bunch of excerpts from my books, a lot of the funny stuff that happened between the Kellys and me when I lived down there. If you want to, because we don't have time to do excerpts today. There's a lot of them on this link here. Celestis.com. I just got on an I am with them the other day, or on an update, and they said, first of all, the Celestis flight is going to be a double flight. It's going to be the Tranquility and the Enterprise. They're both going up on the same Vulcan rocket. Tranquility is going to send a payload to the moon. A lot of the people wanted to have their DNA deposited on the moon, so people can look up and say, my guy's up there, okay? But the Enterprise crew is going beyond the moon and out into deep space and forever, on a forever journey. So the Vulcan rocket is going to go first to the moon, and depending on when it gets there in the phase of the moon, the Enterprise flight will either head out towards Saturn or toward and past the sun in the other direction. It just depends. Right now it's scheduled for the last week or so in March, but you remember it's been rescheduled 3 times. The weather has to be right, all of the tests have to go right, and the whole 9 yards in order for a launch to take place from Cape Canaveral or anywhere else. So they just say, depending on the phase of the moon at that time and where the payload to the moon is going to be, that will determine in which direction the Vulcan rocket continues on into space and deposits the rest of it. For those of you who want to keep track of that, I have right here, Celestis.com. You can go there. You can see who's going to be whose DNA is going to be on the ships. You can click on each of their links individually and read more about the individual. And just yesterday or so, Carl Urban, an article about Carl Urban and his McCoy role and how he tried to fashion it without being a mimic of Dee, how he tried to fashion it as best he could after McCoy. And I think he did an amazing, amazing job. When I met him a few years ago, I actually gave him one of Dee's neckerchiefs because I thought he did such a great job, and I knew Dee would have loved it. And I wanted to let him know that Dee would have loved it because he was, the Kirk and Spock new characters got to meet their guys. They got to meet Shatner and Nimoy, and Carl Urban never did. He only read my book. He knew, other stuff about Dee, but he had never met him. And I thought, he would love to have one. He loved it. He said, if we do another movie, this neckerchief will be in that movie. So I'm hoping they do another movie. Each time he has always done something, an homage. He wears the pinky ring or the medallion from Star Trek 1 or something to try to do an homage to Dee while he's doing that. My DeForestKelleyCollection.com, there will be new items available on that starting this Monday. More new items of clothing. That thing is going really well. Fans who love Dee are getting the clothing. They're not buying and reselling, which was my fear. I wanted to, if I part with it, I want real honest to gosh fans to get them. And that appears to be happening because everybody I've heard from is people that I know who have been Kelly fans for years and years. So that makes me very, very happy. What else? I'm going to look up here real quick and see if there's anything else. Again, if you want to learn more about the DeForest Kelley clothing auction, you can go here to this URL that's on the screen right now. I'll leave it on for just a second or two so you can write it down. It's http://alturl.com/small q, small w, small f, 9, small g. And if you want to see, if you go to DeForestKellyCollection.com, there will be a landing page there. And every time they do a new auction, they have a link. So if you go there, instead of going to eBay and trying to find it, if you do go straight to eBay, put in quotes DeForest Kelly Collection, and it will pop up. But otherwise, you're going to get everything from everywhere. If you go through the DeForestKellyCollection.com, it'll take you directly to the link, and you don't have to go searching. So I think that's it. I think we did a fabulous job. Thank you so much, Jay, for this.
Thank you.
We had a lot of eyes on this. And the interesting thing about this is that this is a busy, weekends are a busy time for most people. They don't generally catch things live. But so I was real surprised to see how many people logged on. And I know there will be more in the days to come when they're not in the middle of a weekend. They'll be looking in on this later. So I want to welcome all of those of you who do that. Please do follow Jay on his Facebook page, Jay Brower. I'm going to take this down so you can see his name, how to spell it. And because he's got videos on there, you'll get to meet his family, just all kinds of neat things. So
yeah, I would say probably my favorite thing lately is to create reels on Instagram and share them to Facebook. And so I've got about 57 reels, I think, of most of the time just trying to put some music. Sometimes it's the natural sounds of a waterfall, but a lot of times it's to a movie. I rather to known music and just try to put some pictures to that or videos to that. So yeah, thank you.
How do they find you there? Just go to Instagram and then look for your name?
I think Instagram or Facebook. I think just on Facebook, and I think under Reels.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I always post them to both.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to have you again in the future if you ever get out of the mountain again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you, Chris.
Take care, everybody.
Yes, all
right. We'll see you next time. Next time we're going to have Amy Hewlin. She's been with us 4 times before. She is deep into the Star Trek world. She's been on. She appeared in Star Trek of Gods and Men. We got acres and acres and acres of pictures, and we'll have more. I will show you a few of the pictures we showed you earlier. There's her with Patrick Stewart, Scott Bakula. Yeah, this is not what it looks like. George Takei. Here's her in Of Gods and Men. So you remember her. She's going to be back with us next time, which is 2 weeks from now, which is February 11th. So I hope you can join us then, and we'll do an excerpt from some DeForest Kelly books too then. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a great day. Thanks, Hannah.
Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.